r/ask Reddit. What are some of the worst business practices you've seen? In the town I grew up there was this guy who ran a music store, the kind that sells musical instruments. He would sell brand new stuff at 50-60% discount. Hell, a friend of mine haggled a brand new Gibson guitar off the shelf for maybe 75% off. I bought several cymbals off him dirt cheap. Open bracket. For you drummers out there, Sabian AA, not crap. Turns out, his family was filthy rich, old money, and running the store was his hobby. You know, just something to do. He would sit there, smoke, discuss which Zappa record was the best, and basically give stuff away. It was awesome and terrible business. Edit. A lot of you seem to suggest that this is some kind of money laundering scheme. But if you wanna launder money, maybe run a business that does more than a $1,000 monthly revenue. He's probably not in business anymore. But then again, I haven't lived there for 20 odd years. You'd never guess he was super rich. He had that basic 40-something, brown leather jacket, ponytail, chain smoking kind of I live in my mom's basement vibe. This was in Norway in the mid 90s. I guess they got him the store to get him out of the house. Who knows? If you strayed in there, you'd almost be held hostage by his never-ending stories and promise of maybe getting that Boss pedal for 15 bucks. It was more weird than cool if I recall correctly. Anyway, sometimes weird is cool, and I still have one of the cymbals. Honestly, that sounds like a glorious way to live if you're rich as duck and don't care. Maybe it's not that he don't care. Could legit love music, would be happy to give the stuff away for free if people would use the music gear. By charging half, he's making sure people are serious. So this store put a massive discount on weighted blankets. They were originally selling for $150, but were now being offered for $39.99. The catch? You'd need to sign up for free as a VIP member online. Okay, no harm done. So I signed up and bought a blanket, and so did thousands of other people. The store cancelled our orders and refunded our money, claiming that they weren't able to fulfill our orders. And now they had a couple thousand more new names on their mailing list. And sure enough, marketing emails came pouring through. I unsubscribed once but still had emails coming in. Duck you Spotlight, Australia. Spotlight posted my wife vouchers that were only able to be used in store. Their store was click and collect, or delivery only during the height of the pandemic. Spotlight refused to allow them to be used in store, and refused to extend the offer end date. Spotlight sent a lot of these to VIP customers in Victoria. So rude. This is probably one of the worst things I read out here. It's so low and unprofessional. It's ridiculous. I use the term business loosely, but I once did graduate research with a professor who was in the process of trying to get a major auto manufacturer to invest in our lab. They liked us, but wanted an example of some of our work. So rather than directing them to some publications of ours, my professor gave them a zip file containing all of our recent unpublished research, including the basis for a patent application. My professor was shocked when they just kept it. What a moron. IDK, how you get to that point in life not knowing that car companies play dirty. That's why he's in academia and not in business. Any company service that allows you to sign up using the internet with minimal verification but requires you to either produce it, bills, proof of address, or show up in person to cancel that service. If I can set it up via the internet, I should be able to cancel using the internet too. You mean Planet Fitness? Yes, I moved to a whole new state and they refused to let me cancel or go into a location in the new state to cancel because it wasn't my home gym or whatever they call it. I hate them. I heard this one from a friend. She worked at a dog kenneling business that would tour prospective clients through the front of the building and show off how each dog would get its own indoor/outdoor run area and specialized attention, etc. Then when Thanksgiving and Christmas came and they got more bookings than they could accommodate, they set up cages and stacked kennels in a back room and people were paying big dollars thinking that their dogs were in a nice roomy pen while the business crammed as many dogs as they could into these basic cages. It was shameful. This is why it's good to find ones that give you 24/7 video access. How dare they? Bodicums for dogs. Trying to get employees to quit. My managers at fast food didn't want to keep long-term employees due to having to pay them more, and firing them means unemployment costs. Us quitting means no unemployment and not having to give raises. Edit. Thanks for all the upvotes and the award. Never thought it would get so popular. To answer a question as to why I didn't force them to fire me. Broke college student. They had flexible hours and I got a free meal. Union, chain, just don't give raises. I mean I would, as I'm not a jerk, but a jerk could just not. When I worked at a corporate Taco Bell restaurant, they would not give management raises until they got reviews about every employee at the store. I worked as a food service manager for a large hotel chain. Let's call it Chariot Hotels. The general hotel manager wouldn't approve repairs, replacements of equipment unless we were expecting an inspection in the next 2-3 months. The immediate bad effect of this was a lot of negative reviews. Our ice maker broke, so we had to send employees to the other side of the hotel to get ice from an ice machine to make iced coffee, smoothies, etc., resulting in extremely long wait times for iced drinks. We also lost money because a lot of the cold food, like chicken salad, can be made in bulk and stored for a few days in the fridge. Unfortunately, half of our fridges didn't cool properly, so we had to make a lot of foods fresh every day and discard a lot of food. Lastly, I quit when I got tired of requesting repairs that never happened. 2 weeks later, they got an early inspection and an exceptionally bad score for a chain. They passed, but just barely. The general manager blamed it on the former food service manager, me, and I believe she still manages the hotel to this day. Yeah, I used to work for their rival Hilton and we'd get inspected, and every time the maintenance team failed, every time I put out a maintenance request, they'd ignore it. It was one full-time guy and one part-timer, and the full-time guy would be lazy and the part-timer would get blamed. Ah yes, Hilton and Chariot lol. I wonder if Byatt and Romney were just as bad lol. I used to serve at a restaurant where we wore pagers that buzzed us when a table's food was ready. Good idea, right? Well, the owners had the policy that you had to immediately go pick up the food no matter what, and that included if you were in the middle of taking another table's order. They said that people understand and are cool with it. Of course they weren't though. Every time I stopped taking a table's order and went and got the food, they were totally pissed off. I could not believe the owners did not understand why literally no other restaurant on the planet does it that way. I can't imagine that anyone was understanding or cool with it. No, everyone hated it. I actually got fired because I stopped following the policy and kept taking orders no matter what. I worked for a big car rental company in the returns department. They would push us to find and charge customers for any new damage on their cars by awarding bonuses on top of our monthly salary. We were given mirrors to look for scratches under the cars where customers would normally not have checked before they rented the car, often leading to heated arguments over if it really was their fault or not. The company did not care either way and made us charge their insurance deposit if they refused to pay. The daily verbal abuse and stress from being sandwiched between my managers and angry customers has definitely left a mark on my mental health, and I will probably never work in the traveling industry again. I sort of felt this. The Hanks for confirming. I once rented a Porsche for a weekend. Literally drove to my girlfriend's. 50 miles. Stayed the weekend. Drove back again. Car was still immaculate. Dropped it off. Nothing said. 2 months later get a charge on my card for £1,000. So I call them up. They say the windscreen was chipped and needed to be completely replaced. The windscreen was fine. So argue this with them and call up my credit card. Get them to put a hold on that charge. Tell the car company. Get me some proof. Time goes by. Nothing. I call them back. They say they still waiting. This goes by. Still nothing. I call them back. The girl says it's been repaired at a different branch. It was £90. So I say, hold on, you're charging me £1,000. Yes, but you just told me it was £90. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. Do you record all your calls? Yes, we do. Then I want a copy of this call under the Freedom of Information Act. Specific UK legislation. She puts me in hold. Comes back in 5 minutes. Will waive all charges. 2 months later, they still haven't cancelled the charge to my card. So I call them, hello, what are you playing at? Oh, we've lost your car hire voucher. The one you gave us when you collected the car. You need to send us your copy. No, I don't. You just need to cancel the charge. But we need a voucher, and we've lost yours. So we need you to send us yours. No, you obviously had my voucher, because you handed the cars over to me. If you've lost, that's your fault, and your problem. You cancel the charge immediately, and go looking for this lost voucher in your own time. Charge cancelled. So, how many other people do they try this with? And how many just pay? This is sadly very common amongst car rentals. My best and most sincere advice for everyone that is going to rent a car is to not rent from the companies that advertise the lowest prices. They are more likely to screw you over for stuff like this. Instead, settle for the more expensive and established companies, as they care more about their customer ratings other than small dents and scratches. And no matter what, get the best insurance you can get. Edit. Also document the car's condition before you drive off with photos. I briefly worked at a FedEx shipping center. The first hour of orientation was basically, if you even think the word union will end your ducking bloodline. First job ever was at Walmart. They too had an anti-unionizing video during orientation, to the tune of "Organizers just want to take your money." Sam's Club, being an offshoot of Walmart, has the same video. It was no kidding the first and only thing they really cared about showing us. The rest of the training didn't really matter. My wisdom tooth operation was ducked up, which they under-anesthetized me for. So I went back 2 days later. They admitted their fault and that they would fix it there and then, but it would cost me equivalent $500. I said, no way. This is your screw up. They eventually agreed. I took the woozy pill they gave me, as it was gonna be big work in there. Operation went as planned, and while I was not even with it, they charged me the money, then booted me out onto the street. I was almost hit by a bus as I had no awareness of anything. Found it all out later on from a friend who happened to be passing and saw me playing with cars on a dual lane road, and B, an acquaintance in the waiting room who had watched me pay. Ironically, I was there due to their daughter's recommendation. Reminds of when my nana got work done at Aspen Dental. She was told her insurance covered it. Well, weeks go by and she gets a bill from the dental place. They said the insurance didn't cover it, so she had to pay, which she did. A week later, her insurance contacts her asking if she was going to pay. Why did she ask them to pay? Turns out that the dental place was lying and trying to double bill everyone. My nana turned over all the evidence to insurance company and they raised holy heck at the dental place. They immediately refunded my nana's money, with apologies saying that they made a mistake. I've heard so many horror stories about Aspen Dental. Major banks sorting your transactions when you have a low balance in such a way to maximize overdraft fees. Honestly, overdraft fees in general. Many banks will charge you an overdraft and deny the transaction, because apparently it costs them $35 to deny a transaction. Perhaps the easiest way they could prevent overdrafts that aren't the account holder's fault would be to ban demand drafts that are not accompanied by a court order. As it stands, with most auto-pay agreements, the company sends a demand draft to the bank. They have the freedom to request more money than what you agreed to. We dropped an insurance company because they tripled our premium without warning. Open bracket. It's also how the Nigerian oil scam works. They use the info pass to issue demand drafts and clean out your account. With real banking services, you tell your bank how much you want to pay vendor X every month, and they cut a check to that vendor every month. If your vendor wants to up the amount, they have to get you to agree to it first. Because Bank of America was sued in a huge class action lawsuit, they have actually changed these practices. If your account gets overdrawn now, they send you a notice that you have 3 days to bring the account out of the red, before they charge you $35 NSF charge. It is a pretty good way to do it now. My local Subway and their perpetual stew of meatballs. Every day they make meatballs to be used on their meatball marinara sandwich, but every day they never use all of them, so they put the leftover ones into the refrigerator to be used the next day. This is fine. You can get away with it since it's held in appropriate temperatures during the day and kept refrigerated overnight. The problem comes after they make more. Instead of keeping the old and new batch of meatballs separate, they cook off new meatballs and just add them to the old meatball container. So technically there could be one meatball floating around in there that is months old before it finally gets scooped up and placed on a sandwich. Eat fresh is the biggest false advertising. It's good advice. Notice they don't say eat fresh at Subway. Hostility towards raises. Rewarding your existing employees is almost always cheaper than hiring new. I've had a manager that scoffed at a single 3% raise for someone who had no raise for 5 years. Good luck hiring a new person with that experience and for less money. There's a reason why job hopping gets you more money, and it's not because hiring new is cheaper. Same. Company changed owners and suddenly did an about face on raises and promotions. My manager straight up lied to my face and doubled down when called out on it. My husband is an EMT. He got a job offer that paid him $6 more per hour and his boss told him not to take the offer because he will give him the upcoming promotion when the senior EMT quits. So my husband did what he said. He didn't take the job offer and waited for the promotion. Then he found out someone else got it and he obviously asked his boss WTF happened. His boss said it wasn't guaranteed. He was just putting his name in the hat with a good word to the senior boss, which obviously wasn't true, but there was nothing my husband can do about it legally, at all state. So my husband got his paramedic license and now he's going to get even more money. Just gave his 2 weeks notice. Not as bad as some of the practices in this post, but a local coffee shop owner near me pressures customers into bringing their own cups. Normally I wouldn't mind this as hey, we all got to do our part to save the environment. Thing is, the owner doesn't do IT for the environment, he does it because he doesn't want to buy takeaway coffee cups. I heard him argue with another customer one day telling her he's sick of her using his cups rather than her own. The whole thing came off so cheap and tacky. I stopped going there for coffee. If the owner is upset about buying 5C cups, he's probably cutting corners in other places too. I do bring my own cuss, you know it's green, but wow, that is stingy. You're basically turning your one-off customers away. Cuss, how will they know? Burnell Productions in Renton, just outside Seattle, constantly lie, cheat and steal from their customers. When confronted, the CEO pleads poverty and needs money to pay bills. The CEO was declared bankrupt in 2020, wiping the debt he had on 13 credit cards. Meanwhile he, the CEO, also has a condo that he hasn't paid his mortgage on for almost a year. Then there's over $40,000 spent on a mobile game, which he does not acknowledge because he has an addiction problem. Bro, what a small world, lol. I think I've heard of Burnell Productions. I remember reading about the CEO trying to hide from taxes and was only found out because he received tons of business magazines to his workplace. Also, isn't the CEO a man that masturbated in front of kids? You are absolutely correct, sir. A veterinarian I once worked for tried to make me reuse bloody IV tubing between patients. Just rinse it out, he told me. He charged the same amount for a pain injection for a £5 pet and a £150 pet. He overworked and underpaid his employees. He was rude to his clients and tried to make staff carry out tasks they were not qualified educated to do. He would cut corners in any possible way. Several of us reported him to the board. Did the board do anything? Yes, he was investigated by the Canadian Board of Veterinary Medicine for several different infractions. Staff and I gave statements, and then, during the investigation, he returned to India for a scheduled visit but didn't return. Last I heard, he and his newly graduated son had opened a new practice in Michigan. People who sell weed. You text them, ask if they have weed. They say yes. You ask them to meet you or if you can go to them and buy some. They say yes. You ask where or when, etc. They don't reply and you don't hear from them again for a few days. One of the best things to come out of legal weed is the customer service aspect of people not having to deal with local drug dealers as much. A dispensary should have abide the old way theme where they bag up your weed for you, take your payment, and then as you leave they go, you don't wanna hang out, and then awkwardly guilt you until you pull out the weed you just bought and smoke it with the guy who just sold it to you. Quotas. From car sales to banking, They always incentivize the worker to lie, cheat, discriminate and provide the poorest service possible to make the numbers look good so that upper management doesn't fire them. If you do your job perfectly but don't try to cheat the numbers, then you look like you're underperforming compared to the ones that do, creating a feedback loop ensuring that everyone who wants to have a job cheats. I had this exact conversation with one of my former supervisors today. I still work for the same company but in a different department, and I was telling him how nothing ever really gets done right because to make your numbers, you are forced to take the shortcut instead of doing it right. To my surprise, he responded that all numbers do is make shit employees look awesome and good employees look bad. Unfortunately, we work for a huge company, and no one gives a shit what we think. Relative of mine is a dentist. He worked briefly for a large clinic and was disgusted at the quotas the dentists had to meet, performing unnecessary work to do so. There ought to be a law category, free trials that require a credit card, and which do not auto-expire. Ridiculous. It's a transparent bait and switch. If you don't think they will buy it for the advertised price after a free trial, then maybe try something more honest, like metered service. Editing to add, a lot of people are posting helpful tips on avoiding this. I appreciate it, but the fact that these workarounds even exist on such a large scale just provides further proof that it shouldn't be a thing in the first place. As for me, I don't sign up for free trials that require a credit card, but many young people who didn't get financial education, people who aren't native speakers, and frankly folks who aren't the sharpest tools in the shed fall for it, and that's not okay in my book. I didn't sign up for a free Sirius radio trial because it required me to enter my credit card information. No thanks, I'm more than happy with my premium Spotify instead. Beware of consignment stores, people. Those store where you can buy used clothing for cheap and also can take yours in to be sold. There may be other kinds I don't know of, but the big red flag is if they do it like this. They offer an agreement when you sell through them that they get a percentage of the sale price, but after a certain amount of time, if the item hasn't sold, it becomes their property and they get full profit, but they allow you to come reclaim your item anytime before that deadline. Ask them if they would assist you to find your item in the store should you decide to reclaim it. If they say no or offer an excuse like we don't itemize so you have to seek it out yourself, then do not do business with them. They are a scammer. An example in my town is CJ's Consignment. Not every item may be scammed like this, but they may occasionally pick a high dollar item and decide they want the full profit. All they do is hide your shit from you. Maybe put it in the back or somewhere customers don't have access to. If you can't find your item, then you can't reclaim it in time. They did this to me with a dress. Kind of hard to miss a big ass gown amongst shirts and pants. And then after my deadline, my dress magically reappears, now property of CJ's. Even former employees started sharing stories online of how they would hide people's shoes or bags or whatever so they couldn't claim them before the deadline. Only trust a consignment store that will help you reclaim your item. Or better yet, don't do business with any that have deadlines like that, if such a thing exists. I dealt with one that offered the option of giving the leftovers to charity. I liked that option. I don't know if this counts because I didn't actually work there, but I went for a job interview at one of those cheapy party $2 stores, and the interview questions were insane. Among other things, the interviewer asked if I was Irish. I have a very Irish last name, and what my religion was, specifically whether I was Catholic. He then also asked, well, do you report laws being broken? Sometimes during busy season you may not get your breaks and will need to stay an extra hour or so without pay, but you'll have to do it because we're a family here. Are you a very sensitive person? Often I find that women can be more sensitive and easily offended by things. You're not like that, are you? Are you easily upset by yelling and tone? When things are stressful there can be some yelling, can be a bit harsh. Can you deal with that without getting needlessly offended? What's your confidence level from 1-10? We don't want arrogant people or people who think they know better. When is a time that you've done something for work which you've morally disagreed with? He also said that he wouldn't actually hire me for a permanent part-time role. Instead he would hire me for a fixed 3-month period where he would be watching me constantly, and if I wasn't dedicated enough to the company I wouldn't get hired again. Essentially, an excuse to fire me if I don't stay an hour overtime without pay and I actually take my legal breaks. Needless to say, I did not take the job, and I am considering reporting them to the legal department of my university. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.